He has over 22 years' experience in management of infrastructure. He was previously the Deputy Director for the Kenya National Highways Authority, KeRRA, where he oversaw successful implementation of performance-based contract concept and embracing road asset management. Engineer Kandie is extensively trained in management of roads, infrastructure, embracing road asset management, and has hands-on exposure in the management of roads. He is a corporate member of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya and a registered professional engineer by the Engineers Board of Kenya. Our next guest is Engineer Francis Gitau. He is the Infrastructure Secretary at the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. He was previously the Chief Engineer Roads, where hereby he was in charge of road development and maintenance standards, policies and coordination. He has been the chairman of the Public Task Force on the Transport Industry Transformation that was gazetted on the 22nd of March 2019. He heads the Mass Rapid Transit System Delivery Unit under the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development and Public Works. And finally, our guest we have for this discussion is Engineer Joseph Anvar Alot. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Roads and Civil Engineering Contractors Association. He brings more than 10 years of engineering and construction experience, both locally and internationally, in the management, planning, design and delivery of diverse projects. With extensive exposure in engineering, he has developed a great passion for the development and application of this important discipline for the benefit of the country and that of humanity at large. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the cocktail of guests we have for our very important discussion today as we look at infrastructure amidst this global pandemic, that is the coronavirus pandemic. And I'd like to begin by taking the first area of discussion, really, as we set the stage. I'd like to bring in Engineer Francis Gitau, who is the Infrastructure Secretary. Just paint for us a picture. How has the infrastructure docket been affected since COVID-19 struck here in Kenya?
Abi, thank you very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. Abi, when you think about infrastructure development, it is undertaken looking at two triangles of performance. One is related to the scope of the project, the cost, and the timeline within which projects will be implemented. And then the other major triangle is the management cycle in terms of who owns the project, that is the employer, the contractor, and the supervisory capacity, popularly referred to as the engineer. And when you look at the COVID pandemic, you believe, and we all know, that it has affected the human factor in the resource plans. So not only the families have been seriously affected, but also projects in terms of their supervision. Once we think about the space under which projects are developed, these are sites where we have human capital, we have machinery and equipment, and there is interaction, and therefore we had to adjust our protocols, and these protocols and extra resources definitely will bring a strain on the financial plans that we have to implement fully these projects. They will also mean some kind of delays. Fortunately, in contracts, we have provisions for exceptional circumstances that which essentially rationally could not be foreseen before getting into the contractual frameworks. And the operations, as they get affected, there are contractual procedures through which the cost aspect of it and the time aspect of the projects are addressed within the contract agreements, essentially in guidelines that we call conditions of contract. When you think about the employer now is now having to conduct his meetings through e-platforms like Zoom and like you are conducting currently with us. If you think about the contractor himself, his supply chains network is affected. And when you think about the engineer, it means the key personnel are not maybe available on site as regularly as we expect them to be when they are undertaking the supervisory jobs. However, we have managed to cope in this sector. We have managed to cope very well. In fact, the impact of COVID to us has not been very major, but it is going to be evaluated after we are through with the pandemic. It's a continuing event of which we are taking data, and this data will inform the extent to which our project portfolio has been affected.
All right.
Definitely is a major impediment to the delivery curve of our projects.
And clearly,
thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you so much for that very strong opening remark there, Engineer Francis Gitau. And you clearly have set the scene for us. And let me bring in Engineer Philemon Kandie. What has been the experience from your end, looking at how this critical economic pillar, that is infrastructure, how has it been affected by the effects of the pandemic?
Thank you, Happy. I'm happy that you have given us this opportunity to talk to Kenyans. Currently, as said by our infrastructure secretary, it is a echo.
Carry on.
As said by our infrastructure secretary, we have observed the protocols of Ministry of Health, and there is very little effect on progress of works. We have given contractors opportunity to transport whatever they require to site in terms of, we know the imposed curfew. Despite all that, they have been able to progress on well. I know there are extra costs involved so that you can be able to meet the protocols. But as for now, they are going on well. It's only that now there's reduced working hours, but nonetheless, they have reprogrammed themselves, our contractors, to deliver what they are required contractually. Thank you.
Right, thank you for that. And Engineer Joseph Anwar, what would be your input on this very critical area as we look at the impact of COVID on infrastructure?
Yes, thank you, Abby. I'm pretty honored to be here with the rest of the panelists, Engineer Gitau of the ministry, and also Engineer Kandie of KeRRA. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for having us to be able to speak to the Kenyan people. For those who may not know, RACECA is an association of professional contractors engaging in roads and civil engineering works, formed and registered in 2008 with support from the government of Kenya through the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, and Housing and Urban Development. Our patron is the Cabinet Secretary, and just to let you know that our membership is open to all contractors engaging in roads and civil works. We are open to also local and foreign firms. Just to also bring to light who RACECA is, we employ in the excess of 50,000 workers who are Kenyan citizens. So exponentially, you can actually imagine that our members are supporting over 500,000 families economically. So I'd like to say also RACECA, as RACECA, we support our members by providing an environment for networking which, with like-minded professionals, which can yield joint ventures. We offer training opportunities, legal advice, and so on. And also just to answer your question, and to also echo on what my panelists have said, the COVID-19 has been very devastating. We've seen lives lost, and that has been very devastating to us as well. And to the infrastructure sector, we have seen normal operations change, like the social distancing, the curfews, the lockdowns, this has highly affected our members. You can just imagine, Abby, due to some of the restrictions due to the COVID, a road that's estimated maybe to take maybe 6 months to 1 year might end up taking longer because we now have to implement the restrictions from the Ministry of Health and the government directives. So we see, and also situations like traveling times, materials are not able to move due to some of these crackdowns. So this has really put us in a really tough situation. But despite this, our members have forged on. We are happy that the government and Ministry of Health have actually put directives to actually curb this pandemic. And we are in fully support of the government, and our members have, even during these tough times, have decided to continue with their works, regardless of even incurring, let's say, even like financial losses, just to be able to support their staff as well, in order to just make sure that the projects do not go down. So, as you may understand, the COVID-19 has been really tough on the infrastructure industry, and we're just trying our best. Our members are trying their best to just be able to go through this. And we hope this pandemic actually has the time to go away so that we can actually be able to resume with our normal workings. Thank you, Abby.
All right, thank you for your insights there. And allow me to still stay with you, Engineer Alot. And definitely the pandemic has had far-reaching impacts across all sectors, from manufacturing to air transport to the agricultural chains. And from where you sit, Engineer Alot, what has been the major concern from players in your sector, especially when it comes to a backlog of work that is pending? And of course, have there been instances where some contracts have ended up being cancelled? And what has been the net effect of this to the economy?
Yes, yes. Okay, there's definitely been some effects that have happened. As you can imagine, when the COVID restrictions were put in place, our members, because of the curfews, the social distancing, that means we cannot have the same amount of people. Our members couldn't have the same amount of people in the construction site. And then the shorter shifts, we had to, you couldn't be able to have working at night. Lockdowns, people were not able to travel back and forth. Our members actually had to redo their work plans to incorporate these restrictions. And you're talking about now having less people and shorter working hours. So with this, it has really now caused projects to actually, and also the purchasing of PPEs and sanitizers and things of that nature to actually curb this pandemic. So you can just imagine this were not envisioned in the contract. So our members, despite all this, are still forging on, incurring this cost, and still trying to make the projects successful as they go along. So there's definitely a financial implication to projects as of this moment. So with that, I think that's all I can say on the matter.
Thank you. And let me take the same question to Engineer Gitau. You represent government on this platform, and I'm sure you'll be taking some of these hard questions on behalf of government. But just walk us through, how has this affected projects, especially what we are hearing from Engineer Alot, that various contractors have had to reorganize their work plans, and of course there are new costs that have come in, such as PPEs, the timelines that you can work. How has this impacted on infrastructure, and what are some of the protocols you've been able to develop to be able to mitigate against having actually providing an environment that can allow for work to continue?
Abby, thank you for that question. I want to echo, also agree with Alot that definitely project delivery curve will be a bit strained. It means some projects will take longer, a little longer to implement. And as he knows, and the contracts are very well organized in terms of the special specifications that are and that guide the process of dealing with exceptional circumstances. This is like an act of God, and Abby, we know all sectors are suffering. What is good about the contractual processes is that we have daily data on infection, we have daily data on performance, we have daily data on the kind of schedule of works that have not been implemented, and in each contract we have a schedule for cost indexation, and we believe with our contractors we more work closely as partners because we are parties to the same contract with our contractors. We know for sure there will be an impact, more so to the public finances. Contractors' risks somehow mitigated by risk management guidelines that are inbuilt in contracts. But I think we are all praying that this pandemic is over and we can go back to our old normal, because the new normal definitely is expensive. However, we want to congratulate our contractors who have continued with delivering our projects, some even with the expedited, progress. We have contracts that are actually not delayed, even with this pandemic. We will definitely have contracts that will be delayed. We want to assure our contractors that in the trinity of management of the contract, we shall be working towards the contractual resolution of the challenges that we shall face. For the government side, definitely, you started with saying resources are strained. You know, there has always been the economic doctrine of resources being rare. Yes, they are rare, but we want to assure the public and the contractors that the government will do everything in its power to ensure that what has been delivered has been paid, and the works that have been delayed are expedited within the conditions of contract, so that we do not work from the point of fear, but the point of understanding our current environment and more having the thrust to save lives as the whole economy grides to a slow halt. So thank you, Abby. I think that confidence must be with the contractors that all will be well.
All right.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you so much, Engineer Gitau. And we want to proceed on a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'll be taking some feedback, of course, from our viewers. Our hashtag for this conversation is KTN News Special. You can tweet us at KTN News KE. You can also tweet me at Agina Abi. When we return, I'll be taking some questions to Engineer Kandie around the presidential directive that did see 5 billion shillings being allocated of roads. How has this project panned out? We'll be getting some answers after this quick commercial break.